Hi, I'm Catherine Mora. I'm a book coach and I work with coaches, speakers, and aspiring thought leaders to help them write beautiful books. This is Kat's Book Chat, and today's topic is you want to write a book, but you're worried what your family will think. Now, many of the clients that I work with are writing memoirs, their life story. So this is a really common thing that comes up. And it really is a legitimate concern because the people that we love, of course, we care about how they're going to think. And we're wondering if what we're writing is going to cause some kind of rift in the family. And sadly, definitely that can happen because realistically, people are really only worried about themselves. So when you write about them in your book, their first concern is generally how they're going to look and how they're going to come off. So I want to go through a few scenarios with you. Now, the first scenario, I had a client who wrote a book about something really terrible that happened within her family, and the person who committed the offences was actually convicted and sent to prison. So in that case, there was no concern of defamation because it's not defamation if the person has been convicted for that thing and they're no longer welcome into that family, and therefore what that person thinks is pretty much irrelevant to the writer of the book, as it should be. There's another situation. I worked with someone and the thing that happened to them, the person involved was never convicted or outed and those kinds of things. And therefore, it's a really legitimate issue how that was written about in the book. And in that situation, we decided that the focus wasn't on the series of events that occurred with this person's involvement, but the focus was on how the writer of the book got through those events and how they recovered and how they healed from those events. And that was the focus of the book. And therefore, that avoided any kind of defamation issue. Having said that, if that person decides to ever publish that book, which they may decide not to do, then they would be getting legal advice on the finished copy, like the final version, just to be sure that there's nothing that could present that particular problem legally. Another scenario is I do have another client writing a book where really the story is their story and the family's involvement is quite minor in that it might only be their conversations or a couple of reactions to a situation, and it still caused some upset in the family when it was discussed. So as I mentioned before, realistically, people are just worried about how they're going to look because most people really, our main cause for concern is ourselves and our reputation and those sorts of things. So people were still upset even though the story really wasn't about them, and in fact the story the writer was telling was much more potentially reflecting badly on them than it was on anybody else. But still, people in the family can get upset based on their interpretation around how it looks for them. So really, what do we do if that is the case? So as I mentioned, if someone's been convicted of something, then it's not a defamation issue. If there's something that's happened and potentially somebody else looks bad, then that can be a defamation issue. And obviously it's going to depend how far someone wants to take it based on their relationship with you or how serious they think the thing is that you've said. So in that situation, I always say to my writers, in the first draft, go raw and go hard. Then in the second draft, we have a look at toning down some things if necessary. If you keep something in there, that can still be fine, but when you get to the end, you can definitely get legal advice around if that's going to present an issue legally or if it's really just a hurt feelings situation. Now, that's not to say that hurt feelings aren't important because this is what causes rifts in the family. So in that situation, what do you do? I would say that you can either choose not to write it, you can write it and then change the focus so that you're like the other client I mentioned who just focused on what they did after a situation and their real focus was just like 100% on them and their journey of healing, etc. Or you could write it and use it as an opportunity to heal your family or to have a discussion with someone about how they really made you feel, or to have a discussion with family about your perspective of what really happened, that sort of thing. I'm not saying that's going to be easy, and to be honest, it might be more difficult than you're willing, to do. It depends on your situation and what stage of development you are at, or what stage of healing you are at. And all of those things will impact your ability to talk to your family about it. So it's certainly a very personal decision in a lot of cases, but it can also be a legal decision. There are ways around the legal thing, and you change names, you change identities in terms of jobs, locations, things like that. The people involved are still going to know who you're talking about, but then they already know who you're talking about. So it's nothing that's new to those people. So there are certainly ways around it. And when you're writing your book, sometimes it's easier to just think, I'm just going to water everything down. But then, why are you writing the book? What's the story you want to tell? Who do you want to help? If you have a reader who's been through the same thing that you've been through and everything is watered down, are they really going to identify with you and really get into your book and really benefit from the wisdom that you have to offer? So there's a lot to consider. I'm definitely happy to talk to you about it if this is something you're thinking of doing. We can just have a chat about your book and the potential for it, and the pros and cons, all those sorts of things. You can comment below, you can DM me, and I'm definitely happy to have a chat to you or a brainstorm to see where you're at. I'll always be honest, and we'll just see where it goes from there. Now, if you would like my 45-step book writing and publishing checklist, I'm going to pop a link below. You just jump into that landing page, tell me where you're going to, where you want me to send it, and it's got all the steps you need from idea right through to publishing and promotion. So it's a really, really great resource. I hope the videos are helpful for you, and I hope today was useful if you're thinking of writing your memoir. Until next time, see you later.